That Saturday morning was calm until everything started to fall apart. Just as the sunlight came through the kitchen window, I had just made a pot of coffee and the scent permeated the room. Walking in with her hair still a little untidy from sleep, Emma wore that big college sweatshirt she adored. She grinned at me, but there seemed strange about it. Not the kind of off that you would have seen absent from non-paying attention, but I spotted it. 7 years of marriage teach you to see the little rifts in someone's armor. Liam, how do you view couples spending occasional time apart? She inquired lightly, as though she were discussing rearranging the living room furniture or experimenting with a new recipe. I arched a brow. What exactly you mean? Like a weekend with your buddies or something? She laughed gently, but even that seemed practiced. No, more like having our own adventures. Just innocent enjoyment, you know? Something to keep things from becoming boring. Something in my chest got tight. Although Emma was always a free spirit, this felt varying. I tried to play it cool by pushing the idea away and drinking my coffee. It probably relies on your definition of adventures. She waved her hand contemptuously, the light hitting her wedding ring. Nothing weird, like perhaps a meal with a coworker or hang out with an old friend. Maintaining freshness is a good thing, right? Her words stayed in the air more than they ought to have. I nodded and forced a grin, but a tiny voice in the back of my mind murmured that this went beyond simply keeping things novel. That week following that talk felt like negotiating a fog. Emma seemed to be somewhat unfocused. More than normal, she checked her phone, vanished into the other room to answer calls, and stayed late at work. I told myself I was obsessing too much. She had never before given me cause to question her. Then arrived the evening she claimed to be dining with a colleague called Ryan. When I asked about him, she replied he was simply a man from marketing and not really fascinating. The name did not ring a bell. She swore she would be home by 9, laughed, gave me a cheek kiss. I wished I could believe her. I had to start to believe her. But the knot in my gut informed me differently. She still wasn't home by 9 o'clock rolling around. I gave her a call. Not sure, texted. Nothing in response. She at last came through the door at 10:33, her smile brighter than usual and her cheeks flushed. She said, kicking off her shoes, "Sorry." Ryan would not quit talking. Something about her saying his name made my blood stop. That evening I did not press her. Though every thread of my existence was screaming that something wasn't right, I wanted not to come across as insecure or neurotic. But I silently decided the minute she turned away from me. I was not going to discount this sensation coming forward. She was mistaken if she believed I wasn't listening. Emma was unaware, meanwhile, that I was observing, and I wasn't going to let her slip away with whatever she was hiding. Emma returned to her normal self the next morning, happy, striking casual conversation about weekend plans. She even inquired as to whether I wanted her to pick some steaks for the grill. Still, the sensation from the evening before persisted. Every word she spoke seemed to be a thin layer of paint, hiding something far darker below. I resolved to be cool, not letting her see the doubt gradually devouring me. Rather, I leaned in her adoration and even praised her new hairstyle she had gotten earlier in the week. I had a strategy, so I needed her to let her guard down and assume I wasn't suspicious. The initial action is reviewing her phone. I is aware. It sounds terrible. Though something about the way she'd been fixated to it lately didn't sit right with me, I never imagined I would be the guy snooping. I thus took advantage of her absence running errands that afternoon. On the kitchen counter, locked, her phone was charging. Still, this is the important point. After 7 years of marriage, you notice small nuances like the fact that our marriage date, 0314, was her passcode. As I typed it in, my hands shook, half expecting it to deny me access. It neither. Her messages were clear, excessively clean. Though their interactions with Ryan were brief and businesslike, something about the way she portrayed our life felt. Off-peak, just the typical. Not interesting here. She sent one SMS, another, haha, nah, he doesn't notice anything. He is rather relaxed. That one hit me like a gut punch. She was referring to me here? What specifically caught me off guard? I scrolled up, my eyes reading every letter as though I were assembling a jigsaw. And then I discovered it. Ryan's message hidden under several others. Last night was quite wonderful. Excite to see you once more. My eyesight hazily changed. Incredible. Yesterday night, my chest heaving as I attempted to absorb what I had just read, I slapped her phone down and inhaled deeply. She told lies to my face. Coworkers did not have a group supper, just Ryan and her, and whatever incredible accomplishment they accomplished was not something she would be ready to share with me. I assumed nothing had changed when Jolene returned home later that day. I grinned, gave her a forehead kiss, and even pitched in to help her sort the goods. Still, under the surface, my mind was racing. Every chuckle, every glance, every word she spoke felt like a blade. She knew nothing, hence ignorance was the only weapon I had to keep her from knowing I was going to be moving forward. That evening, I found it impossible to fall asleep. Laying there, I gazed at the ceiling and went back over every chat we had over the past month. Her sudden interest in me time, the tiny things I would have discounted, the late-night texts, the slight scent of cologne on her jacket not mine. All of it clicked right now. Though I wanted answers, I wasn't going to approach her until I had evidence, cold, unambiguous evidence. I thus carried out something I never would have considered doing. I brought in a private investigator. Marcus was a seasoned man in his early 50s, with the sort of countenance that suggested he had seen it all. Over the phone, I told him my doubts, omitting the more intimate specifics. He paid me a flat price and promised to be discreet. He asked few questions. The next week passed in a haze of worry and waiting. Emma's behavior didn't change much, but now I could see every minute element. How would she spend additional time getting ready for work? She seemed lighter, as though a weight had been taken off her shoulders, her smile at her phone more often than normal. Except weight was my tool of choice. On a Thursday afternoon, Marcus contacted me. "We have to meet," he continued, his voice low and austere. "You will want to see what I have here." That same evening, in a tiny diner on the outskirts of town, I ran across Marcus. The place was mostly vacant, the kind of place where people avoided asking questions. When I got in, Marcus was sat in a booth already, a manila envelope laying on the front of his table. Though his facial expression was unreadable, his eyes said all I needed know. Not going to be simple, this was. Liam pointed for me to sit. "You have to ready yourself before we begin. I have horrible to show you." My heart was hammering so fiercely I could hardly hear him across the blood flowing in my ears. "Just show me," said my voice firmer than I felt. Marcus pushed the envelope across the table. My fingers shaking, I paused briefly before opening it to retrieve a stack of pictures. Sitting in a dimly lit bar, Emma, whose hand rested on Ryan's thigh, struck me like a goods train. Her smile was brilliant, the type I had not seen aimed at me in months. The next picture turned out worse. Leaching against his car in the parking lot were Ryan and Emma. His hands were on her waist, dragging her near for a kiss. It was more than simply a friendly peck. It was the kind of kiss that screamed passion, the kind of kiss meant for someone not terrified of being discovered. I dazedly turned over the rest of the pictures. Here, there was no uncertainty or space for misinterpretation. She was betraying me in every conceivable manner, not only running a coworker for drinks. "For at least 3 weeks, she has been seeing him," Marcus stated, his voice slicing through my veil of incredulity. "Dinner times, late-night get-togethers, even some long lunch breaks. All here." I looked at the proof. Every second tightened my chest. Did they? I found myself unable to answer the question through to completion. Marcus nodded gloomingly. They had stayed in a motel. Although I stayed outside, I have seen enough to understand what is happening. I wanted to yell, turn the table, pound anything. All I could do, though, was sit there caught in a mixture of sadness and wrath. For him, the lady I would have loved, the woman I had trusted all my life, had thrown all aside. Now what? My voice just above a whisper, I asked. "That's up to you," Marcus said. "But if you want my advice, Wait to approach her until you have a strategy. Right now you are in a position of power. Do not give that up." I nodded, sliding the pictures back inside the package. I paid Marcus, said thanks, and left the diner without saying anything else. The weight of what I had just seen dropped over me like a black fog as I drove home, but under the suffering, a fire of will started to blossom. As Marcus pointed out, I needed a strategy. Emma was already in bed when I got home. The gentle glow of her phone lit her face. Looking up as I entered, she gave me the same phony smile she had been employing lately. "Hello, how was your evening?" she asked lightly, as though nothing unusual were happening. "It was good," I said, trying to smile. "Just meeting up with a friend from years past." She stopped asking inquiries and I stopped providing specifics. Rather, I went to the kitchen, filled a glass of water, and settled at the dining table staring at the manila envelope in my hands. Though it seemed intolerable, it also cleared things for me. Emma had chosen. Now it was my time. I started implementing my plan over the following several days. I started writing the divorce papers after phoning a lawyer to explain my circumstances. I told Emma nothing at all. I would let her believe she was winning if she wanted to play games right up until the time she wasn't. All was ready by the time the next weekend arrived. Her suitcases were packed, the locks on the house were changed, and the paperwork were signed. I had only to wait for her next exciting date. Emma was nearly shining when Saturday night arrived, getting ready to head out. Her hair and cosmetics was expertly done. She wore a scarlet dress I hadn't seen in years. She winked and added, "Don't wait up. Grab your purse and walk out the door." I set everything up after hearing her car turn away. Right next to the manila packet on the dining table were the divorce paperwork. Her main door greeted her orderly packed bags. I even left her a little letter. I hoped Ryan was worth it. Then I took a seat and waited. Late that evening, far later than usual, Emma went home. I heard her car draw into the driveway about 1 in the morning. I stayed sitting in the living room, the setting I had painstakingly created for her softly lit by the table light. Though not with grief this time, my heart was racing. This was purely determined. I could hear her hum gently when she opened the door, most likely still engrossed in whatever vision she had been living out with Ryan. At first she didn't see me. Her phone lit in her hand as she moved toward the kitchen, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She stopped, though, as soon as she noticed the suitcases beside the doorway. "Who is this?" She raised a shout. Her voice carried a confused quality. She turned around, her gaze darting the space until it landed on me. Calm and collected, I was seated on the couch when the manila envelope rested on the coffee table in front of me. "Welcome home, Emma." My voice steady. "We have to talk." Her uncertainty evolved into annoyance quite fast. "Liam, whatever is happening? Why am I packing my bags?" Leaning forward, I grabbed the envelope and held it out to her. "As you are not now staying here." She left the envelope behind. She crossed her arms instead and looked fiercely at me. "Whichever the hell you are referring to." I did not reply straight away. I opened the envelope, took one picture out, and set it on the table she could see. Ryan and she were in the parking lot, their mouths tightly clasped in a passionate kiss. Her face turned white. "Would be nice to clarify this?" I asked, my voice cool but not friendly. Emma's mouth opened and closed like a fish trying to breathe. Indeed, it doesn't look like this. The ridiculousness of her answer made me chuckle. Not what one finds visually appealing. "So, trusting you, you were not kissing Ryan in a parking lot while I was sitting at home." Now her hands were shaking, but she attempted to calm herself. "Liam, listen, it was only one instance. It had no meaning at all." "Just stop," I replied abruptly, severing her off. Respect my intelligence not by disparaging it. "Emma, I have much more than just one picture. I know about the dinners, the lodging, everything." Though I felt no pity for her, her eyes were full of sorrow. "No more." She turned back to me after once again looking at the suitcases. "Kindly, Liam. We are able to handle this. I made a mistake, but this isn't how it has to finish." Rising to meet her, I was tall. Emma, no. The moment you decided I wasn't enough for you, you chose to call our marriage off. You tossed away everything I had for some cheap excitement after I had spent the past 7 years providing it to you. I moved back when she stretched out to grab my arm. Liam, I am loved. Yes, I do. To me, Ryan means nothing. Love is, I shucked, laughing and shook my head. You don't turn on someone you love. You lie to their face and skulk about. Emma, you decided, and now you will have to live with the results. From the table, I reached for the divorce paperwork and handed them her. Already signed are these. Yours just has to be put your signature. You can then get your stuff and head off. Her tears descended into full-fledged sobs. Liam, kindly. Don't do this. I never will see Ryan once more. I'll do all to correct this. But these words meant nothing to me these days. Those pictures revealed the truth, and for the past 2 weeks, I felt the weight of her treachery and every lie she told. This was not something from which one could return. You need to have considered that before deciding Ryan was worth more than your marriage, I said, my voice as steel. Now, if you would forgive me, kindly go. You can stay with Ryan or anybody else you believe would be suitable. Holding the divorce papers as though they were a death sentence, Emma dropped to her knees. I did not, however, feel sorry for her. She had made her bed and now had to lie in it. Not at my place, just not. Walking upstairs, I slammed the bedroom door behind me and left her alone to gather the ruins of her broken existence. I had an unusual calm for the first time in weeks. Though not quite happiness, it marked the beginning of something better. The house was silent when I got up the following morning. Quite quiet. Looking at the clock on my nightstand, usually about 7:15 a.m., Emma would have been in the kitchen, pretending everything was good while the air smelled coffee. However, not today. I dropped on a shirt and went downstairs. I first looked at the dining table and saw the divorce paperwork. She had not signed any of them. Rather, something scrawled rested on top of them. My heart missed a beat as I grabbed it, her recognizable handwriting staring back at me. Liam, I have no idea what to say either. I know I damaged you and I know I don't deserve your pardon. I still think we can work this out, thus I skipped signing the paperwork. For now, I'm staying with a friend. When you are ready to speak, kindly call me. Emma. I crumpled the note right here in my palm. The words, figure this out, play like a nasty joke in my head. She still thought there was a chance after all she had done. It nearly seemed ridiculous. Approximately. Her automobile vanished as well as her bags. Standing in the midst of the living room, the truth of her absence sank me and I felt empty. Wasn't this what I wanted? To recover control over my life? To be free from her lies? Why then did the room seem to have had air taken out of it? Our rescue dog, Max, stroked over to me, his tail wagging slowly as though he could feel the strain. Grateful for the solace of his silent company, I knelt down and scratched behind his ears. Right now, friend, I said. Just us. We'll work out this. The next several days were an unusual mix of relief and resentment. The home seemed lighter without Emma, as if the stress had been physically released. Conversely, the silence was almost deafening. Every instant of her treachery in my thoughts seemed like a fresh cut, something I couldn't stop playing over. I threw myself into tasks to keep my head busy during the day and concentrated on work. The nights were tougher, though. Sitting in the living room, I would fix my gaze on the empty couch seat Emma occupied, her laughter haunting me like a ghost. Max would curl up next to me, his soft snores the only sound in the house. I let her calls and texts gather on my phone like unresolved questions, avoiding her. She wrote texts practically daily, each one more urgent than the last. Liam, kindly talk to me. I'm apologies. At least, could we meet and discuss this? You are missed. I'm missing you. I couldn't get myself to reply, though. What had there been to say? That I started to doubt her again? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her in that parking lot with Ryan. I was thinking for what length of time she had been lying to me. About a week after she left, one evening I got a call from an unidentified number. I first assumed it was one of those spam calls, but something compelled me to answer. "Hey there," I replied warily. "Liam?" "It's Ryan here." At his voice, my blood froze to ice. "Whirl what the devil you want is." I caught. On the other end, there was a stop. Then he sighed. "Look, I have to talk to you even though I am most likely the last person you wish to hear from. It's vital." Right then and there, I nearly hung up, but something about the way he said it stopped me. "You have 2 minutes," I said with jaws clenched. "I wanted to say," Ryan started, not knowing at first she was married. "She didn't tell me until, after we'd already gone." "I thought you should know. I'm not trying to provide justification." My hold on the phone grew tighter. "Should that help me feel better? You were too naive to see her lying to you as well?" "Look, man, apologies." His voice begging. "I truly am," he added. "But there is more to this than you might realize. I thought you deserved to hear Emma tell me some things about your marriage about you." My heart hammering, I tightened my jaw. She has been exactly saying what? Another stop followed. Then Ryan's voice lowered to practically a whisper. "You had been ignoring her," she said. "You have been icy and remote." She sounded as though looking elsewhere was her only option free from choice. The words strike me like a gut check. I wanted to yell, quarrel, tell him he knew nothing about my marriage, first of all. Still, part of me kept wondering. She saw me in that way? Was that her defense of what she had done? "List Ryan," I said at last, low and menacing in my voice. "Though you can believe everything she is giving you, you dare not call me one more? You created your bed, and right now you could handle the aftermath." Before he answered, I hung up. Shaking hands, I threw the phone on the couch. Ryan's comments kept coming back to me and set off a tempest of uncertainty and resentment. One thing, though, was quite clear. Whatever Emma had told him, it did not alter her betrayal of me, and there is never any way that excuses or justifications would make it right. Following that call with Ryan, I kept playing everything in my thoughts. Emma had shared with him lies, her justifications for it. All seemed like a fresh betrayal on top of the one I was already juggling. I had no reason to believe anything she said anymore, if she were ready to rewrite our whole marriage only to defend her behavior. As though nothing had happened, she texted me the next day. "Would you kindly talk? Though I know I damaged you, we can work things out." I stared at the note for what seemed like hours. Correct this. She assumed we could easily fix things and resume normal. The boldness of it made my blood boil. I decided I had enough. It was time to finish this once and for good. First, since she had left, I texted her back. "We should meet. Tomorrow. See the house." Her response arrived virtually immediately. "I'll show up." I checked everything that evening to be ready. Back on the table were the divorce paperwork, and I had printed every embarrassing picture from the investigator. This time there would be no apologies or tears. I was done offering her the presumption of benefit. Emma arrived looking hopeful, even relieved. "Liam," she said as she entered, "I'm so glad you texted." I wasted no time with politeness. I drew attention to the table. "Slink down." Her smile stumbled, but she followed. As she looked at the documents and pictures, I could feel strain in her shoulders. "This is what is here?" she questioned, though her voice said she already knew from her terror. Sitting opposite her, I said, "This is the reality. There is no more lying or justification now. I have one last opportunity to have you tell me everything. Should you lie to me once again, you will pay for it." She stopped, her gaze flitting between the papers and me. "Liam, get going." I stopped here. "From Ryan, why? For what period? And why the devil did you suppose I wouldn't find out?" Still transfixed, Emma groped for the pictures with quivering hands. She turned slowly through them, her face getting paler with every one. She missed my eyes by the time she arrived to the last picture. She said at last, her voice almost audible above a whisper, never meant for it to go this far. It was simply meant to be enjoyable. Fun is, I repeated, my voice tinged with incredulity. You wrecked our marriage for entertainment value? She started to cry, but I felt nothing of sympathy. Liam, it wasn't like that. I didn't intend to do this. Ryan and I began our conversation at the office. He was focused, hence I suppose I became caught in the focus. Focus. Leant forward, my fists clasped the table's edge. So then? Not sufficient for you I was. That is what you are saying? She shook her head, now tears pouring over. You have always been just sufficient. But lately, things felt different. You seemed far as though you were not actually here. And Ryan made me feel... Not, I snapped, cutting her off. You dare sit there and hold me responsible for your decisions? I bestowed upon you everything, Emma. My faith, my love, my life. And you pay me this back off? Her tears became sobs, but I persisted. For what length of time has it been happening? I pressed for. She said 2 months, her voice trembling. At first it was only dinners. Liam, I pledge. But later on, it grew more. I thought of myself as having been gutly pounded. 2 months in duration. She'd been lying to my face, prowling around, and allowing me to think everything was good for 2 months. And all for what? A cheap thrill with a guy from her workplace? Rising, I walked around the room while the wrath bubbled over. You could have informed me you were not happy. You could have spoken with Emma. You chose instead to turn on me. What you have done, do you know? Her cries muffled. She sank her face in her hands. She sobbed. I never meant to hurt you. I was dumb, huh? I realize I don't deserve your pardon. I was selfish. You're damn right, I muttered, my voice icy. You don't. You also are not understanding it. I gestured to the divorce records on the table. Signs them, Emma. Right now, right now. This is no longer a marriage. The room hummed with Emma's sobs, but I felt nothing at all. Not sympathy. There is no sorrow. Just an empty nothingness from whence my love for her used to be. Her fingers fluttered over the pin as she reached for the papers with shaky palms. Please, Liam, she murmured. Are you sure you want this? I gave out a sour laugh. I want a lady who doesn't lie to my face while prowling about with another man. But because that's not feasible, yes, I am very sure. Her breath stopped, and for a time she sat there staring at the documents as though they were a death sentence. She then gently picked up the pin. Her signature came out wobbly, reluctant, as though she still believed she might persuade me otherwise. But it was accomplished. She became not my wife the moment the ink set. She gazed up at me after blotting her tears away. She choked off. I never stopped loving you. I shook my head after lengthy minutes of staring at her. Emma, you never turn on the people you love. Simply said, you just do not. Her lip twitched, but she remained silent. Nothing more to say was left. I gathered the papers, neatly folded them, and put them aside. I then got up and moved to open the door widely. Your bags are full. Your automobile stands outside. Now is the time to leave. Emma thought twice. Can we? Number. Her shoulders dropped, and she scooped up her bag with a deep, quivering breath. She moved toward the door and stopped just before leaving. Her eyes rested on me, waiting for something, and I could feel their weight. One last chance. One last weak moment. I did not, however, give it her. I locked the door behind her without further word. The quiet that followed was intolerable. I was solo for the first time in 7 years. Still, I could at last breathe, first in months, then for the first time.